Well, hey guys, and welcome back to Dan's Pro Shop. Today, we are expanding on the winterizing of your camper, RV, tow behind, whatever you have. But one of the most important things about these things, especially for winterizing, if you're in the north, like here in Pittsburgh, protecting the roof of these things. If you're one of the lucky few that has a place to put this thing under roof in the winter, well, good for you. I'm not one of them, and a lot of us aren't. So, what is a good way to protect these things in the wintertime? Well, I'll walk you through how I do it. And if you're interested, stick around because we're doing it today. Well, we're out here in the tool trailer because if you guys have been around for a minute, you know what the inside of the garage looks like. And this is where the overflow goes. So, step one to this process, or at least what I like to do, make absolutely sure the roof of your trailer is clean, but at very most dry. Now, ideally, you want to like get up there and scrub this thing and inspect the seals and inspect everything before you cover it up. It's a good idea to do that a couple times a year, period. But, I'm trying to get this thing dry so I can cover it today. So I'm not going to go through the washing. And it's not too bad. I did it not long ago. But you want to make sure you get all the leaves out, make sure that the gutters are clean and dry, and inspect stuff while you're up there. So step one, clean off the roof. Now, there's a million ways to skin this cat. I preferred this method because this is what I've done. It works good. I use this to clean the roof on the house and everything. It's just nice. It's convenient and it saves you from getting dirty and bending over in the gutters and all that. But, if you use a broom or a rag or whatever, just do what you can to clean that thing up there. And I tell you what, man, investing in good stuff is worth it. I love this steel crap. Oh, gotta choke it. I'll meet you guys up there. That'll do it. Wait a couple minutes, let the sun do the rest. Now, another thing to keep in mind, if you are covering or tarping this for any reason, I'd say 99% of trailers, campers, whatever, have these little gutter extensions. Well, you can't take those things off, at least not easily and without destroying stuff. And you don't really want that thing destroying your potentially very expensive tarp during this winter covering process. So they make these little cover thingies that go over those, but I've found a better solution. Let me show you. And that solution being a simple pool noodle. Now, if you guys are in the RV thing, you know that there are endless uses for these cheap little crappy things in an RV. Between storing things, making sure they don't shift around, or like holding down the plate inside your microwave, or putting these in your refrigerator so things don't move. Endless uses for these. Well, these also work fantastically for covering those little gutter spouts on the roof of your RV. Now, you can even leave them on year round. I mean, whatever, but at very least, grab one of these from the dollar store for nothing, cut off the chunks, however many you need, slip them on over your gutter, and this will effectively protect your tarp and kind of take the tension off of those things a little bit so they don't get beat up so much. So we'll just cut these things down into however many pieces you need, slip them right on. Cut this thing in half here. It's easy as that. So however many of these things you got, cut them down, slip them over like so. Perfect. Well, now that all those are taken care of, we've effectively cleaned the roof. I know it's not clean, but it's good enough. The next step is to get you a giant freaking tarp. put it up there, and then we'll fasten it under the underbelly. Now, this tarp that I have, take it for what it's worth. Now, guys, this tarp, I feel is a little excessive, but that's also kind of the way I live my life, is a little excessive. But in case you guys didn't know, I used to be a diesel semi-truck mechanic, so I still have a lot of ties in that community. So there is a company, rather local here, that makes custom tarps for semi-trucks and triaxles and stuff. You can pick your color, you can pick your material, the size of the tarp, grommet location, thickness and gauge of material, stitching, all that crap. Well, that being said, that kind of customization comes at a cost. So this tarp was expensive, but it's also an insanely good tarp, which also comes with the caveat that it's insanely heavy. And man, is it a bear to wrestle this thing. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't need to do all of this. You could easily go to Royal King or Amazon or Tractor Supply or something and get a sized tarp that's applicable for your trailer. Now, I recommend obviously getting a good one that's sized properly, but you know, up to you guys. Now, sit back and relax and watch me give myself a hernia trying to get this thing up here. This is by far my least favorite part of camper owning every year. Holy crap. Man, this thing has to be 60, 70 pounds. Excessive, yes. Awesome quality, yes. Now, when it comes to setting this thing up, like I mentioned, there are a million ways to skin this cat, and you do you. I've just kind of found a system that works for me. So, like I mentioned, I spent a lot of time around big trucks in my life, and there is a very specific way to fold tarps. So imagine, if you will, you see a truck going down the road, they have something on their trailer, and it is tarped. Well, these big, giant, heavy tarps aren't as simple as just winging them over and strapping it down. These things, you actually fold them up inside out in a very specific order. That way, whenever you lay this on top of, the trailer, whatever you're hauling, or in this instance, a camper, you set it in the middle, fold it out over the long ends, and then fold it out over the short ends, and that will make the outside of the tarp exposed in the correct orientation. Now, this goes against all traditional tarp folding. I'm sure that you've done it in your life, but this is a very specific and common way that truck drivers fold tarps for this reason. Now, I'm not going to be able to get you up there with me for the majority of this because the camera is going to be in the way of where I need to put the tarp. So I'm going to do the best I can to give you as good of a glimpse of what's going on. Maybe I might be able to set you up on the garage. That's a great idea. Give me a minute. Oh, this is definitely the worst part of this whole thing. Taking it down in the spring isn't nearly this bad. Come on. Ooh, yeah. Come on. Ooh. Okay. That's the bad part. It's over. Oh. All right. So now that I have you guys in a good spot, you're going to be able to see how this thing unfolds and exactly what I was talking about, the way that I folded it up last year. All right. Of course, we got more leaves since I came up here and cleaned this thing. Now, another thing you're going to notice is that while I'm doing this, I'm going to extremely favor the front, cover a lot more of the front than I do of the back. That is because this is a toy hauler trailer, and I keep a lot of toys in here over the wintertime. That's kind of the bonus of a toy hauler, is that it's like a storage shed whenever you're not using it. So I keep a lot of crap in here that I may want access to in the winter months. So I covered the majority of the front. That way I can still have access to the tailgate in the winter. Yep, like even that's too much. Pull more to the front. All right. And same thing goes for the side that you're looking at. I only cover about the top 6 or 8 inches. That way I can still open the man door. And then, not to mention that this side's kind of protected anyway because it's right next to the garage. So I like to cover the majority of the exposed side. But now that I have this thing out, you guys will see whenever I unfold this thing how it just kind of works. Now, once you get the majority of this undone and there's enough that you can reach from the ground, then you can start zhuzhing things around. Now, that being said, pay mind to when you're just yanking stuff because there's your vents, your air conditioner, there's all kinds of stuff up here that you don't want to like hurt by ripping a tarp over it. So just take it easy with that aspect. Oh, another thing you guys may have caught. You notice where my ladder is? I'm on the gutter, not the awning. Never, ever, ever lean a ladder up against this awning. You'll thank me later. Now we're at the point where we can kind of just start zhuzhing things the way we need it to go. So like I mentioned, I want to have the majority of the overhang on this side because this is the exposed side. I think that's pretty close. Memory serves me correctly, that crease is right on the corner there. Now you guys can kind of better see what I'm talking about. There's not a lot of overhang on this side or the back. That allows me access to open this door and the man door, and if and when I need it. Now I've thought about maybe modifying this tarp to leave like an opening for the man door, but it's such a good quality tarp. I don't want to touch this thing. It's going to last forever just the way it is. But now you just got to get creative and do your tie downs and maybe do some folding in the front. Either way, that's the next step. It's just a lot of tying down and getting this thing the way you want it.
6.5 hours later.
Well, guys, after about an hour of messing around with this thing and getting all the folds just right and strapping down and up and down, and here she is. Now, like I mentioned, this is totally up to you and it's completely conditional. There are a million ways to do this. I've been doing it this way now for 6 years and it works great. It's just labor intensive. So let me give you a look around. So like I mentioned, this thing is a toy hauler and I keep a lot of crap in here, dirt bikes, golf cart, whatever, but stuff that I might want access to during the off-season months. So I leave the tailgate exposed, just a couple strings here to hold things tight, and if I need to, I can just pull the string, open the tailgate. But at least the roof is covered. That's the important part, with a little bit of like 6-8 inch drip edge on the top. And over here we have a similar situation, especially covering the awning over here, because you don't want all that snow and ice and everything to sit on that, or in the gutters for that fact. You just want to keep that crap off your roof for as long as physically possible. So I have tie downs in a couple of areas over here. But like I mentioned, this side's kind of covered from the weather anyway, since we brought it up against the garage. So I'm not as worried about this side. And this allows me access to get in and out of the trailer during the off seasons, even though it's covered. Ideal? No. Best thing I can think to do, and does it work and has it proven itself over the years? Yep. And arguably the most difficult part is the front, because you saw how much overhang I had in the front. Well, obviously I don't need to get into the front like I do in the back, so I favor all of the extra up front. And not to mention, it's fully covered, so I like that. However, since there's so much overhang on the one side and not so much over here, you got to get really creative on how to put this together and kind of make it work. So this is where that, just use your imagination and try to put this together as best you can and fold it in a way where water won't get trapped in here in the way that you folded it. Like, let me show you better on the other side how I put that together. So take a look at this seam right here. This is what takes the majority of the time, at least with me doing this. So think of it like wrapping a Christmas present. You know, you got your fancy corner folds and then the flap goes over the top. Extremely similar, because you want this to be nice and flat and no creases or anything. So you fold your extra up under the front and then bring the front down over top of it. So this outside flap holds all the crap on the inside. You secure this, do whatever you need to do underneath, and then that gives you this nice clean fold up here with no exterior folds exposed that will catch water and ice. And the goal is you want the outside to be nice and flat with no area for water to get caught in it, because if you do, that's kind of negating the purpose. So take your time. It's gonna suck. It's gonna take a long time, especially if it's your first time doing it. Like I said, I've been doing this for 6 years now, and it still takes me a while. I've never done it the same twice. It's just, you kind of get a little bit better as you're going. And up here, there's a bunch of different ways to do this also. A couple years ago, I attempted to wrap the whole tarp around the outside of this, and it does work, but it makes these corners significantly more difficult to put together cleanly. And not to mention, it kind of creates like a tent underneath, which is really inviting critters to get up in here, because that gives them a nice dry place to live in the wintertime. So you minimize as much of the tarp sticking away from the camper as possible, because you don't want things to get up inside of there. And not to mention, most of this stuff is meant to live outside anyway. The propane tank cover, it's meant to live outside. And even eventually, whenever this thing does take a dump, they're not all that expensive to replace, so I'm not that worried about it. The battery boxes back here, they're good quality all-weather battery boxes, so it's fine for them to be out in the elements. Now, up here is some stuff that I added. So for the electric tongue jack, this is a Four Seasons weatherproof, like, canvas bag that goes over this thing. And then for the hitch, like the tongue itself, I just got myself a 2.5 gallon bucket that slides over this, and then hook up your safety chains to the handle so it holds it there. You know, just keep the water and crap out of your hitch. Help things last as long as possible. And then you guys can see the myriad of bungee cords, or gungie straps as I like to call them, along the side here. These aren't entirely necessary, but it keeps this thing from turning into a sail. Now, these guys are adjustable length bungee cords, and I just go all the way underneath the skirt and hook onto the inside lip of the frame rail underneath. That gives these things plenty of tension, and this is more than sufficient for the whole thing. You might remember at the beginning of this, I stressed how important it was about folding this tarp. And a matter of fact, if you guys want to, after the season, I can maybe do a video about exactly how I fold this tarp and why it's so important. But another reason why that's so important is, you see the crease lines? They are the same all of the time. So I have a frame of reference every year when I do this. And you can look at that fold line against the roof edge. That way you know if this thing is level and square, and you have the same amount on this side and that side. It's just another thing that you can look at to kind of keep track of what you're doing. And for all the places where I actually tied things down, this is just that cheap, crappy paracord that you can pick up from anywhere. Amazon, Walmart, Target, whatever. You just get a big spool of that paracord, do with it whatever you want, and at the end of the season, just cut it and throw it away. This is cheap, just replace it, and it's by far the easiest and best way I've found to do this, because you got to get creative on where you're tying off to. And here we are up on the roof. everything turns out pretty good. You know you got it nailed down when everything is nice and, dare I say, taut up here. And it's kind of nice. The air conditioner is the high point, so it kind of creates a runoff for the water. But all said and done, this works out pretty darn good. And one last thing while we're out here, cover your tires. Now, I know the most detrimental thing for tires is UV, and it's not that big of a deal in the wintertime. But either way, keeping these things out of the weather is never a bad idea. Well, guys, that about wraps up this project. And I know I sound like a broken record here, but there is a million different ways to do this, and it's completely conditional on the area that you live in, what kind of weather you experience, what kind of trailer you have, whether it's a Class A or a fifth wheel, or you may simply just be in a situation where it's unfeasible to do this. But that being said, covering your roof is super important because everybody knows that the roofs on a camper is kind of like their Achilles heel. Not to mention that the entire thing itself is garbage. Like they are just built so bad. If you have one, I don't need to tell you. So doing every little thing you can to try to protect these things and prolong them, the better off you are. Now, like I said, that tarp that I got, it's custom made, super heavy duty, and dare I say, probably too expensive for what it was. But I felt it was worth the investment to try to protect this thing. So, like I said, I've been doing this for years, and that roof looks just as good as when I got it. Now, it's not new, obviously, but it's still good. And I account a lot of that longevity to covering it in these harsh Western Pennsylvania winters. It's just can't go wrong. So, like I mentioned, if you guys are interested, maybe after the season, if you guys want to see exactly how I undo this process and fold that tarp properly and get it ready for next year, because as crappy as a situation as this is, folding the tarp properly last year makes the this year event a little more easy to take. But if you want to see how that goes on, go ahead and drop a comment. And not to mention, we have to unwinterize. So, get all the antifreeze and stuff out of the lines and just pretty much take this thing out of storage mode and get it ready to use again. And it's not as bad as winterizing, but there's still steps you have to go through for checking everything. So hopefully this helps you guys out a little bit. And, if you struggle through this on your own, at least now you got a little bit of a guide. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next time.